Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Your Football Opinion. I am your host, Theo Ash, and today we've got a pretty straightforward show. We've got to talk about the Jets arriving as contenders, maybe, in their dismantling of the New England Patriots. Aaron Rodgers looking fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about what Mel Kiper said about the too high shell, how it should be banned from the league, and then I'll give a breakdown on some of the Week 3 games that moved me enough to talk about. Not sure which ones yet, but we'll find out. But the most pressing matter to open the show is definitely the fact that Aaron Rodgers looks top 5 again all of a sudden after his absolute masterclass on Thursday night. It had a lot of people asking, and I think it's fair to ask, was this the best Jets quarterback game ever? Probably not the best one ever, but going through True Media statistics, it was one of the best in recent history. It was the 6th highest total EPA game for the Jets, and those numbers go back to the turn of the century. And it was the 4th highest EPA game in a win. I doubt that the Jets care too much about big EPA games and losses. So I think it's pretty solidly a top 5 performance, and it gave me an opportunity to look at some old Jets games and numbers and take a little trip back through time. I thought it was fun to see the 3 names above this Rodgers performance in terms of Jets EPA. The first one was back in the Rex Ryan era. We're going to December 2014, the last week of the year. Geno Smith led the Jets to a 37-24 win over the Dolphins. He was 20 of 25 for 358 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. That earned Geno a perfect passer rating. So that performance statistically was better than Rodgers, and that one was just crazy to think about. Geno Smith having a perfect passer rating for the Jets back in 2014. It almost kind of breaks my brain that his story is still going the way that it has. Just a little reminder of how crazy that is. Another great game from a Jets quarterback. How about Josh McCown? On December 3rd, 2017, Patrick Mahomes watched from the bench as New York beat the Chiefs 38-21, a shootout where Josh McCown was 26 of 36 for 331 yards. He scored 3 touchdowns, including 2 on the ground. And then the most recent special Jets performance before this one, you guys remember the Mike White game just a few years back? November of 2022, he was 22 of 28 for 315 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The Jets beat the Bears 31-10. But with all of these games, there is a heavy amount of flukiness to it, like the Geno game. That was a garbage time game. It ended up being Geno's last full game as a New York Jet. The Josh McCown game, you did great, nice job, but it was Josh McCown the whole time, right? The next week, he went 6 for 12 for 46 yards and a pick. And then Mike White, he never threw a touchdown for the team again. And all of these games were in November or December when the Jets are, out of Super Bowl contention, if not out of playoff contention entirely. So even though these are great performances and maybe better than Rodgers statistically when you look at some of the numbers, this Jets performance stands out because the Jets aren't out of the playoffs. This isn't some backup having a random nice game. This is their franchise quarterback. 27 of 35 last night, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, 18 yards on the ground. That got him to 299 total. Yeah, the numbers aren't quite as gaudy as some of those other performances, but this one isn't a flash in the pan. This isn't a fluke at the end of the year. This is domination from a guy who's actually supposed to be the Jets' present and their future against the New England Patriots, a team that has owned everybody in the division for years, or specifically the Jets. The Bills have owned the division recently. But in a way, this is the best Jets game that I've ever seen, in the sense that there's actually reason to be optimistic for the rest of the season after watching them. And I don't think that I've seen that since I graduated elementary school. I remember being in 4th grade and I knew that the Packers were going to the Super Bowl, and I remember staying up late to figure out if we were going to play the Steelers or the Jets, who played the next day, the AFC Championship game to go to the Super Bowl. That's about the last time I remember being optimistic about the Jets or seeing them playing relevant football. Fourth grade, Mrs. Har's class. Shout out to her. So yeah, it's something I've never really seen before. I've got to apologize to all the Jets fans out there. I picked the Patriots to upset you on the pregame preview. Did not age very well for me. I'll stand up here. I'll own it when that happens. I missed on the Falcons game too when I thought the Eagles wouldn't get upset. So that was not good either. I feel like when I go through these videos, like I kind of say the key to the game and then completely misjudge how it will actually play out. Like in the Falcons versus Eagles one, I'm like, well, Philly's gonna play with lighter boxes than Pittsburgh did, so Bijan should really be able to get going. Philly will win still, 21-10. It's like, no, dude, that was the key to the entire game. You just said it and let it pass you by. And then in this one, it was like, well, Garrett Wilson is probably going to get slowed down, right? That's all the defensive attention is going to him. But, who really has the capability of winning outside of that for the Jets? Turns out everybody, apparently. I mean, it was a dominant performance, even though I thought Christian Gonzalez really did a pretty nice job on Garrett Wilson for most of the night. Alan Lazard was really tough to tackle. Broke one on the way to the end zone, broke another one for a huge first down, had a third down conversion as well. Every single one of his catches was high impact. Tyler Conklin had an amazing game. Mike Williams had some nice contested catches, and then the running backs. Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. It looks like the best duo in the league. I mean, is that an exaggeration? Breece Hall is so slippery. The touchdown that he had where he spun over himself, leaning forward, almost parallel with the ground, and was able to keep his knees off the turf to score. Just unbelievable stuff. He caught a check down. There were like 4 Patriots in front of him. And he just ran around them all. It wasn't for like a massive gain or anything like that, but just when he caught it, it just looked like he was viced in, bracketed. You can't split the double, right? But he can. He can just run around everybody. So to get that kind of shiftiness, the catch that he had too, the one-hander that got called back a week before, he caught a go route for a touchdown, kind of adjusted to a ball that wasn't in the ideal place and still made a hands catch above his head. He's got the home run speed. He's crazy explosive. He can shed contact. Like he's the only back that you need. Okay? But then, on top of that, you've got Braylon Allen, who is handed the ball, and he's going a million miles an hour immediately, and just is a beast. I mean, the guy is an athletic specimen. Guys are pelting him in the backfield, and he just slides right off of it. And I thought the Jets' offensive line looked like who they were supposed to look like this year. So they were opening up big holes. Tipman and the interior, Simpson, Elijah Vera Tucker, were allowing Allen to inflict a ton of damage on these linebackers and defensive backs. And it just felt like right away the Patriots would not be able to have any answers for that, because you knew if it was looking that good early, eventually the big plays will start to come. Eventually they'll get worn down. They can just lean on this and control the clock. Jacoby Brissett's not going to get that many opportunities, and it's not like they're going to be very explosive on that side of the ball. So if they're not winning in the trenches, it just felt over pretty much immediately. I know the scoreboard didn't end up being super lopsided, but from the very beginning of this game, I could tell that my Patriots win prediction was pretty much cooked. As soon as it was 7-0, the Jets were winning in such a dominant way and such a sustainable way that it just felt over here from the very beginning. It ended up being a 261 yards advantage for the Jets in this win, one of the longest in recent history for them, or one of the biggest in recent history for them. Yeah, it was just It was the best Jets game I can ever remember watching, seriously. And it came on the same day that all we heard about was the too high shells. Mel Kiper saying it's too cracked for defense. We need to ban it. We need to get the offenses going again, juice them up a little bit because this is tough to watch. Is basically what he was saying. I liked my esteemed co-host of the Stay Hot podcast, Matthew Sponhour's tweet about it, insinuating that it was a heat check from Mel Kiper. That he wasn't maybe fully serious when he's said it, just kind of saying things to say things as talking heads do. I agree. I don't think Mel Kiper necessarily thinks that it should actually be a penalty to line up in a shell, but it got everybody going for a day. I mean, it is true that offenses are weighed down, but it's not like they're unbeatable is the thing. And Rodgers showed exactly that last night. What can you do? You have to move people with your eyes. If they're in a too high shell, and just really any shell these days, more likely than not you're getting zone coverage. As a quarterback, you have to do some work to open people up, whereas versus man, it's really all on the wide receiver. The quarterback has to look a certain direction. These guys are keyed in on your eyes a lot of the time, right? So if you look a certain direction, it's going to contort the zone a certain way, and then you can look somewhere else, and people will be out of position. The Tyler Conklin catch up the seam was a good example of this. He had a choice route also in the red zone. I think it was on a third down, and Rodgers was looking left, looking left, looking left. Everybody's like kind of cheating that way. All of a sudden, Tyler Conklin breaks kind of against the grain. He's one-on-one with a linebacker. Without Jawan Bentley, it was really rough for the Patriots linebackers to hold up. And then you move. There's a hole in the zone that the eyes have created. There's someone open on the choice route. Bang, bang, bang. It was just good stuff from him the whole night. And to do this, you need pass protection as well. All right, if you're going to be dropping back, looking around, manipulating safeties, you can't be looking down at the pass rush. All right, you can't worry about that. And the Jets, their offensive line has not been perfect. I don't think Tyron Smith is playing at the level that you'd quite expect him to, but against the Patriots, I didn't really hear Keon White's name called all night. And the protection was certainly good enough that he could drop back pretty comfortably and pick these guys apart. If you have an accurate, smart, manipulative quarterback, more ways than one maybe with Rodgers, you are going to be able to survive, and a lot of teams right now can't in this new defensive landscape. The other key for the Jets tonight, Rodgers looked mobile. That was kind of my main takeaway about his performance. And this offensive line is the same as it was last week and the week before. They weren't this good. Certainly, otherwise I would have picked them to win. They weren't this good. This is new. And I think the biggest change from last week over this week is the later in the down it got, the more scary Aaron Rodgers became. And that has not been true for the first 2 weeks of the season. He was 9 for 11 against the Patriots when holding the ball for over 2.5 seconds. His passer rating was in the triple digits. Before, on those plays where he had to hold the ball, it was down around 50, 60. You just didn't quite have that scrambling ability that you saw in this one. And yeah, he looked great. He looked very mobile. He was kind of ducking under, arms, reaching for him in the pocket, getting out to the perimeter, running, and being very accurate, passing out there. So the fact that they kind of got that shake and bake ability, that ability to move, it sets Rodgers apart from some of these other 40-year-old quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, he's not quite 40, but he's coming off the same injury. His mobility is very sapped. All right, it looked a little bit better when the Falcons won. They were at least able to run play action, but you're not getting anything like what you just saw from Rodgers. When Brady and Breeze were 40, you weren't getting what you just saw from Rodgers. So Rodgers still had, even in the previous games, that ability to diagnose you immediately and get the ball out of his hands in record time. I mean, against the Titans, he threw a slant to Allen Lazard against off coverage. Probably the fastest I've ever seen a ball hit a quarterback's hands and leave it on a pass that's not like a jet touch pass, you know what I'm saying? And against the 49ers, he saw man coverage check to like a slot fade from Garrett Wilson, right? Hit the top of his drop. The ball is out immediately, right? That he was able to hit, but he's old, he's washed, right? That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, okay, that's all there is like get the ball out fast at this point. So for him to hold it and create and make plays happen with his legs and down the field, really nice. He had a throw that I really loved to Mike Williams. Gave him a chance in the end zone. I thought his arm looked really good there. It was accurate. Williams will come down with that a good portion of the time. This one he almost did. He had it for a second and then it popped out of his hands. Like that was an elite throw. The Jets didn't really have many explosive plays on this night. But it didn't look like Rodgers was incapable of hitting them. Certainly, you would have liked to have seen him hit Garrett Wilson on that one where Christian Gonzalez was on the ground. But overall, just fantastic stuff. Really, everything you could possibly want if you're a Jets fan. Maybe Tyron Smith. I thought I saw him lose maybe a few times around his outside shoulder. But outside of that and the Mike Williams drop, like it was pretty much flawless. It was pretty much flawless, and that's why it was their best performance in a long time. Maybe I mean, I don't want to say ever because I'm sure, like, I watched Joe Namath in Super Bowl III this offseason, by the way. Rodgers wasn't better than that, okay? Joe Namath was cooking in that game. Let me be an old head here for a second, okay? You guys don't remember Joe Namath and what he was capable of. So it's not the best game ever, but considering that offenses have just gotten better and better and the football has just gotten better and better in general, you could say that Rodgers on Thursday night was actually the best quarterback that the Jets have ever had because of like if you're not adjusting for era. So yeah, in a way it kind of was because it is the best in recent history as far as I'm concerned. As far as the Patriots go, we saw a little bit of Drake May. I don't know why. He came in there and then got pummeled immediately. I feel like if you're not going to start him week one, then your mentality is protect your asset. But now you're not protecting your asset because you're sending him in there to be a sacrificial lamb to get killed. The offensive line was a complete disaster. They fell behind early. They couldn't keep it on the ground with Ramondre Stevenson. He had one big run that got called back because of a face mask. That was pretty much it from him. He may have suffered a hand injury in that moment as well. They were on the field so little that I couldn't quite understand like if he was hurt or just not part of the game plan after that. Jets defensive line was crazy. Quinnen Williams bull rushing. David Andrews was maybe my favorite play of the entire night. That's the Patriots' most reliable lineman by far. Williams steamrolled him. It was a dominant rep. Obviously not much going on these corners with those wide receivers. Just a suffocating performance. The Jets move into number one in sack differential now. One of my favorite stats. I feel like sacks are so underrated in terms of how drive killing that they are. Analytics would tell you that they're not really even that much different than an interception in terms of how they can kill a drive if they're bad enough. So that was one thing I was really looking for this year is sack differential, right? How many are you taking versus how many are you giving up? Kind of that hidden yardage there. I know the Jets have played an extra game, but differential is something that you got to keep having positive ones. An extra game could mean you're lower than everybody else. So for the Jets to be at 9, create all that pressure while Rodgers is getting the ball out quick, really good stuff. The last thing I'll say here about the Jets, they currently rank 5th in red zone touchdown percentage, and they rank 5th in third down EPA per play. So I think that's a big key for them so far. In these crucial situations, they're actually getting it done. The red zone has really been a struggle for most teams in the league this year. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 above 50% so far in the red zone. So for the Jets to be at like 75, that's a good number to be at. By the way, a couple years ago, 2018, there were only 4 teams below 50%. There are only 6 at or below 50%. Now, I know the sample size is small here. There's a ton of teams at exactly 50% right now. But the red zone is at an absolute premium this year. It is scarce to get TDs down there instead of field goals. So for them to be able to do that and perform on third down makes them pretty scary. Pretty scary. The Browns, the Saints, the Texans, Bills, Jets, Cardinals, Colts, Vikings, and the Buccaneers are your above 50% red zone teams this year. So congrats to the Jets. You've got a team this year, it looks like. I know the Patriots aren't too crazy difficult, but they've done a nice job shutting down the Bengals and then obviously taking the Seahawks to overtime. So to win this dominant against them, I do think that it means something. I do think that it means something. We saw the Saints dominate the Panthers. That meant something. The next week they went in and beat the Cowboys, right? We saw the Vikings crush the Giants, right? That meant something. The next week they used those same things that made them good, and they beat the 49ers. And I think that this Jets performance was so good that when they face a tough team, they're going to be better going forward. Although you do kind of got to keep that 49ers performance in the back of your mind until they do overcome a really tough test again. But that's enough on this one game. I do kind of want to talk about the macro state of offense in the league right now. Mel Kiper, I mentioned it a little bit before. I think it was a heat check. I kind of just fell out of a coconut tree, unfortunately for everybody. I don't know the context of the entire, NFL schematic evolutions up to this point. I'm sure there are better places to go. I know Nate Tice has written articles about this. Match Quarters on Substack is a great place to go if you're looking for the macro trends and if you're interested in them. That can really give you in-depth breakdowns of what's going on. Like, I am just a 24-year-old with a true media subscription right now. But I do want to share some numbers about coverages before we move on to the Week 3 preview. So, in a 2-high shell, it's not cover 2 that is killing offenses. It is quarters. And it is rotations. Cover 2 is only being called 10% of the time. And even when it is called, it's not that effective of a coverage, okay? And it certainly is not forcing checkdowns. That's kind of the last thing you want to do against cover 2. Against cover 2, you want to get vertical. All right, there's only 2 deep safeties. In quarters, there are 4. In cover 3, there are 3. So if you want to go vertical, like against cover 2, it's a great time to do it. Quarters is what's forcing all the checkdowns. Quarters is being called at a 15.5% rate. And the EPA per dropback against cover 4 is negative 0.065 as opposed to negative 0.026. Negative 0.028, very similar, against cover 2. It's the 4 deep umbrella that is really forcing guys to scramble and check it down more than anything. And the reason that this is so helpful is not only does it prevent the big plays, the quarterbacks, you want to air it out down the sideline, things like that. It also helps versus motion, and I think that's a big key. If offenses are going to put somebody running across the formation, it sucks to not have people at depth to defend that. If everybody is on the line of scrimmage and someone runs across the formation, someone's going to have to run with them, right? If you're high up, perched, at 10 yards of depth, not only the safeties, but the cornerbacks, and someone runs across the formation, you can kind of communicate and come downhill on that, as opposed to, someone goes across in motion and then someone runs a crosser, right? If you're down by the line of scrimmage, you're going to have to turn around and chase that from beneath, whereas it's better to come down from up top where you can see everything better. It's really just a vision thing. You can see everything better from quarters, so the eye candy is not as effective, basically, is what's happening. So to ban that would be silly. Okay, ban motion. That'll do it. Then teams won't play quarters as much, and you'll get more just line up like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers want to do. Line up and spread, run a three-step drop back passing concept, and just dice people up with full field reads all day. You ban motion, you're going to see more of that. Um, but you don't want to ban. Nothing needs to be banned. Okay, the game is fine. The games are perfectly entertaining. I don't know what people are on about like, oh, the offense is down. Like we need to change something. It's like the games are still close, aren't they? I don't care if the defense make. I don't care who makes a play. All right, if the Lions are dropping back and instead of slicing everybody up with the motion and the play action and the inbreakers, the Buccaneers are just rotating down from cover two to cover three and sitting on all the inbreakers and making plays. That is just as entertaining to me. Okay, find another way to win then. If it's seriously such a skill issue, and the Jets just proved that on Thursday. The most common coverages that you see these days, guess what? It's cover 3, 33.5% of the time. Cover 1, 21.2% of the time. You're still getting these single high looks. It's just you're not giving that away before the snap. It's really not that complicated. The other thing about modern defense, the replacement pressures are so huge. I talked about it with Flores a couple weeks ago. It just feels archaic that teams used to just line up and blitz everybody and play a fire zone or a man coverage behind it. You can become more precise with what you're doing and still rush only 4. Instead of carpet bombing the offensive line, you can have a guided missile. Okay, where is the back and pass protection? How do we attack him? So what teams are going to do at a really high rate this year is they're going to show pressure from the edge and then bring it from the interior. They're going to show pressure from the interior, drop back, not bring it from anywhere. Or they're going to bring it from the edge. You're not going to know where the pressure is coming from, but you're going to feel it before the snap. And bad quarterbacks, they drop their eyes. It's that simple. Bad quarterbacks, they drop their eyes. Everybody is running all these complicated looks. What Mike Zimmer was doing years ago, Drew Brees said it on John Gruden's podcast. It took more mental energy preparing for that defense than anything else. All right, and now that's a lot of teams across the league. This is the new meta. Everybody wants a piece of the Ravens now, and what Mike McDonald was doing last year. So it's just difficult. It's just more difficult than it was before. Now, how do you beat that? How about the Saints, right? Oh, it takes so much mental energy to prepare for the Mike Zimmer defense. You don't know what blitz looks like. Just run it, man. Just run the football. The Trevor Penning pick ended up being ahead of its time. I hated that pick when it happened because he couldn't pass protect and was chippy to his own detriment. It's like, well, this guy's going to get cooked. Ryan Ramczyk goes down. Trevor Penning is thrown in there. It's the perfect time for him to be in the league because the Saints are throwing it like 30% of the time. They're saying, okay, if teams are going to line up like this, we'll just run it with our all-star collection of wide zone linemen and just kill everybody because we don't have to worry about where the pressure is coming from or where the rotation is. If they're in a too high shell, let them rotate. They better. So it's a run first league these days. Got to get used to it. I think it's super interesting to think about. When I was first coming up in the industry and got Twitter and was just kind of learning what was good, I was really into analytics, right? The EPA of it all, the Football Outsiders Almanac of it all, and the things that the analytics told people to do was to get in too high, right? Like passing is way more efficient than running. Running backs don't even matter, right? Anybody just go in there and it's all about throwing the ball. And I remember there was this fact, I was on board with that for a long time, and I remember there being a faction of people being like, hey, this is all cyclical. The numbers that you're running right now are based on just a very small snapshot of time in the NFL. And if you start doing things a certain way, like, yeah, you're going to fix one problem, but another problem is going to spring up somewhere else, and all of a sudden running backs are going to start to matter a whole lot more. And we've just seen that play out so perfectly over these past couple of years. It's like, wow, I mean, it made sense, I guess, but you're really just seeing it now, and it's like, oh, damn, they weren't lying. This shit really is cyclical. This really is all just going in circles, and eventually the Braylon Allens of the world are going to be too effective, probably, and you don't want to give up 5 yards a carry, 6 yards a carry against too high all the time, and teams will start looking for these big linemen so they can run what the Saints run and look like the Saints do, and things will probably start to change here eventually without anybody banning anything. So I just think it's interesting. Let's get into some of these week 3 previews. I'll only go through a couple games, not the whole slate. But the first one I want to talk about is Jaguars versus Bills on Monday night. I am extremely concerned about the state of the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. I think they've kind of skirted by playing playoff teams from last year, not in any kind of prime time window. They're 0-2, but both games have ended up being pretty close. I don't think they were favored in either of the games that they played, or at least it was pretty much a toss-up. So the fact that they lost 2 close ones, not a lot of eyes are on this team. There's not a lot of panic amongst national media or really anybody talking about the team at all. But I think some major dominoes could fall on Monday night, because the more you look at this tape, the less sense it makes to you. I just think that Doug Peterson, his seat can't be anything less than on fire right now, just absolutely burning up. And I think if there is a big disaster against the Bills, we could see him fired, maybe not 0-3, but they got a tough matchup week 4 as well. If they start 0-4, he could be gone. I mean, we could be watching. They're in a bit of a death spiral to me right now. It feels like this offense is just doing things that are different just because they're different. You know what I mean? Like, there are best practice plays to run that are just better than other plays. Okay. Wide zone right now. All right. If they're going to be playing it too high, put an extra tight end on the line of scrimmage and run it to the C gap and make the safety come all the way down. You're going to have the numbers, right? Just that can be a whole identity, just that play. The Jaguars, their running game is like a trap with your tight ends going down on a defensive tackle, and like you need your left tackle to reach the linebacker, and if he takes a single false step, it's just not going to happen for you. Just difficult assignments for everybody in the running game, instead of just something you can go back to over and over and over again. Like, where is the identity along the offensive line? Like, what are they especially good at that you can call and have them block it up, and the rest all falls into place? Like, there's nothing to hang your hat on here. And then the plays that they're calling are just low percentage. I looked it up. They ran 2 double moves on 3rd down and 4 against the Browns, the first 3rd down of the game. That route has a 33% completion percentage according to Sports Info Solutions. So if you're going to target it, you're living with, okay, there's a 1 in 3 chance we go here. How about a slant? Like, what's the completion percentage there on 3rd and 4? How about a dig, just a screen, something to the flat? Like, there's so many more things that you can dial up that isn't a double move to convert there, especially 2 double moves, 1 on each side. How about 1 double move? Okay, that's fine. You want to see if you can get them, that's fine. And if it's not there, you can look at the backside, and then there's someone breaking into your vision, instead of they're also just out of the play now because they're running a double move too. Like, pick your best matchup. There's your double move. The other guy is moving across the field. That's good play design. Not 2 of them. And I looked it up. The Browns allowed 1 completion on a double move all year last season. Teams didn't try it against them because the pass rush was too good and the cover corners were too good. So it just wasn't, especially it wasn't a good play against Cleveland. 1 completion the entire season last year. Jaguars just break it out. Like, why not? It's like, that's not an efficient play for you. dude. No one ran it last year for a reason. Why are you running it? It feels like the only rationale would be, oh, no one runs it against them, so we'll catch them by surprise by running him. Okay, that no, that doesn't work. You're catching them by surprise. That's what they want you to do. That's what they're constantly ready for. That's why no one does it against them. It's not that they're not ready for it, it's that they're always ready for it. So just silly. And then they'd straight drop back under center. Looked it up on the film room playlist for NFL Plus Premium. Looked up, okay, under center, no play action, right? They ran 3 times last year a play like that, but on every single play it was like in the red zone and Trevor Lawrence would boot out. This one was just like straight up stick, right? Just drop back, 3 steps, get it out quickly. It got batted at the line of scrimmage. Trevor Lawrence is 6'6". If he's getting batted at the line of scrimmage on stick, it's probably like it's because he's shallow in the pocket because of the dumbass drop back that you didn't run once last year. Is overall not a very good play across the league right now. Like the only teams that run it are teams that are under center all the time because they want a bit of a changeup. The Jaguars aren't under center all the time. There's just no reason for that play to be in the game. If you're going to be under center and you want to pass it, play action. That's what works from that look. They just don't seem to understand that. It's like, oh, we'll surprise them. It's just a change. No one is they're happy you're doing that. No one is that surprised. The corners are reacting to stick just like they always would. You're just putting your quarterback in a tougher position in the pocket. Why? Why? You're running into bad looks. Why? All right, safety is down right on the line of scrimmage. You're asking Brian Thomas Jr. to block him. It's like physically impossible for Thomas Jr. to get to Grant Delpit in the look. You're still running it right at Delpit. He's just unblocked to make the play. Trevor Lawrence turns around. He starts yelling at the sideline, moving his hands. I just don't think the vibes are right in Jacksonville right now. This offense is completely discombobulated. And Trevor played like shit, I think, against the Browns. He missed tons of easy looks. Like his accuracy was all over the place. He was taking sacks. Like no doubt, he is not looking very good so far this season, but that doesn't mean your offensive philosophy has to be trash. I mean, I've seen Tua Tagovailoa have games where he makes plenty of silly mistakes. The offense is good overall, though, so the good it just ends up outweighing the bad. Same thing with Brock Purdy, right? Or Jordan Love. I've seen Jordan Love make mistakes, and the Packers offense still runs somewhat smoothly because the play design is fine. So he might make one mistake, but it doesn't derail everything. But the amount of Jaguars plays that go right is just too low. Whether it be Lawrence misses a throw, he hits a throw and the receivers drop it, or the play design kills it before the play is even snapped. Like those 3 things happening make up like 90% of the Jaguars offense. The times when everything goes right are so few and far between. Against the Browns, they had one play. Out, they had sail, okay? Switch release sail, a line and a stack. The 2 guys are running right next to each other, and then one breaks out, one breaks in. It's just tough to distribute. They hit that a crazy amount of times versus the Browns, at least 3, maybe 4. Like they got one play in their playbook that works right now. It's a corner route. Outside of that, it's just a disaster. So I think they're going to get pantsed by the Bills unless they really turn things around miraculously. I just don't see it, though. I think that on prime time, this Doug Peterson will be fired in the next 2 weeks. Take is going to start to get louder. We're going to start to hear it on talk shows outside of this one, and that's one that I'll have a close eye on. Now, maybe they can pull it together. Like maybe Lawrence can play really well. I think that he's certainly capable of playing a lot better than he has the last 2 weeks. So. Not that he's even been the main problem these last 2 weeks, though. That's my concern. Is like even if he does play well, are they just gonna drop more passes? Like Gabe Davis isn't running the right route. Like I could go on and on with the excuses, but I won't. I'll move on to another quick preview here. Let's talk about Panthers versus Raiders, just because Bryce Young got benched. I thought it was a fair decision for the Panthers. I know how shit they've been. I know how organizationally bad they are. Their owner can't stop assaulting people and fans and causing a mess, and he's crazy impatient, right? Darnold couldn't succeed. He left. He's doing better now somewhere else. Baker couldn't succeed. He left. He's doing better now somebody else. So Bryce, I think it's fair to say they're impatient as always. This isn't the right move. They should keep him in there. I mean, it's fine if you keep him in there and give him a shot to kind of redeem himself. But at the same time, like, Adam Thielen needs to put some good stuff on film, Like, he's not going to be on the Panthers forever. Maybe he wants someone else to actually sign him after he's gone, and he's not going to be able to do that with Bryce Young out there. Or Mingo, right? Like, there are other players that need to be able to showcase their skills. And right now, Bryce has such no handle on things that you can't even really evaluate the tape of the Panthers right now, outside of the running game. The pocket presence, abysmal. I mean, he is on his tiptoes. Seriously. It's like, I know that this has been said, it was happening last year, but the amount of throws where he is literally, you can see the bottom of his heels on the all-22 as he's like trying to draw power to throw. It's very concerning, and you're just not going to be accurate. You're not going to have power throwing like that, and unless he is consistently in empty, I would say, like more than any other quarterback, it's always going to be an issue. Empty, last year, it was his best formation. You are kind of inherently forced to get the ball out of your hands quick because there's only 5 people protecting you, so you can't hold it. You just kind of got to distribute it as fast as you can. And also in empty, usually or always, I would say, there's someone at or outside each number. So pre-snap, the defense has to defend kind of every blade of grass. They have to spread out. They can't huddle up at the line of scrimmage and change the blitz looks as much or show as much. They kind of have to spread out and live in that world, and I think it's a little bit easier for Bryce when the heat is kind of off of him in that way. Like, yes, you have to get the ball out because one-on-one your guys have a difficult matchup, but you're not getting the pre-snap blitz looks that they have really struggled with so far. So, but they're not running that much. Empty is the thing, and even when they have, like, he threw a bad pick versus the Chargers. He threw like a double covered in breaker that got picked by the safety because he missed it. So even though empty was his best thing last year, this year he's one of the worst quarterbacks in empty because of that. The only team I could really see him succeeding on maybe is the Dolphins. They're kind of up at the top of the league in the empty looks. Their whole thing is to get the ball out of the hands quickly, try to mitigate as much pressure as possible. Obviously, they had a ton of success with the previous Bama quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, who is now, his career is in jeopardy, it's fair to say. So if there is going to be a trade, definitely the Dolphins are the only team where I could really see Bryce having a chance. But even then, you've got to rip it over the middle there. If you're Bryce, you've got to be able to hit these digs in a tight window and let Tyreek catch it and run. And right now, Bryce is floating it so far up and down when he's targeting the middle of the field, trying to get it over those offensive linemen, that he's overthrowing everything constantly. So even if the Dolphins were thinking of trading for him because they run, a lot of what he's good at, they also run something that he's struggled with. And so why would you give up a draft pick for someone who's going to go in there, and when you go to hit that dig, it's just in the hands of the safety because he's not accurate. So I don't know if anybody trades for Bryce right now. I think obviously he'll get a shot to be a backup somewhere in the future, and currently for the Panthers, but in the middle of the season, it's just tough to give up an asset for a total unknown, someone who's probably bad, someone who doesn't look physically capable of hanging. So, how dangerous are the Panthers then with Andy Dalton against the Raiders? Well, the last time we saw Andy Dalton play a game, he threw it about 50 times, I believe. I do think that the passing offense for the Panthers has a little bit of potential. Yeah, he was 58 for 34 for 361 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bryce Young hasn't been under a ton of pressure so far this year. I think that we've seen players with some separation down the field. Deontay Johnson has helped it a little bit. Adam Thielen has been opened a few times. Bryce has missed them. I think you got to work Leggett in a little bit more. He hasn't really seen the field much, but that can change at any time. Mingo really isn't that dude. I know when they drafted Leggett, they talked a lot about how he got the ball on end arounds and screens and crossers and all these things that Canales said was all we were going to ask him to do in this offense. Just haven't seen enough of it. I'd like to see a little bit more of that, and maybe that's possible if your quarterback is a bit more competent and capable of having a 300-yard game. So I do think the Raiders could be in a little bit of trouble there because, the Panthers aren't necessarily a free win anymore. They're more of an unknown. They might be a free win, but they're a bit more of an unknown. I do think the passing offense will look better with Dalton. I am very interested to see if the Raiders can hold off putting in Aiden O'Connell. We'll see about Minshew here after the week he just had. He did pull out a win at the very end, but it was kind of a miracle that he was able to turn it around after the first half. So we're always on AOC watch here. And then for the Raiders, it's just Brock Bowers is the main story. Like, how many different ways can we get him involved? Just how productive can he be? Can he be the best tight end in the league this year? I think we're on watch for that. Kelsey, not himself. Kittle, always going to be a little bit inconsistent week to week, I feel like, in terms of receiving production. I think that Kittle, with his blocking, is so valuable that he's a tough guy to beat in that top tight end spot. But Bowers is just such a good receiver that maybe he doesn't pass Kittle in terms of value, but maybe he can pass him far enough in terms of receiving production that he gets viewed as the best tight end in football. I mean, the yak ability that he has, the feel that he has versus zone coverage, the way he's able to be physical, but also read the blocks in front of him so well, and just he can almost kind of be walking or moving, not nearly as fast as everybody else, but still be picking up tons of yak because he's just setting up his blockers so well and feeling that so well. He does remind me a little bit of a young Travis Kelce in that way, with just how good of a receiver that he is, how good of a feel for the game that he has. A guy like that, along with Devontae Adams, is super dangerous. I think that this one could actually be kind of a good game. I don't know, though. That might be my hot take. We're getting a good game. Another one that I'm interested in, Cardinals versus Lions, is a fascinating one to me. The Cardinals actually have the advantage here when the Lions offense is on the field, at least in terms of defending the pass. The Lions offense is outside of the top 20 in passing efficiency. The Cardinals defense ranks number 16 right now. Will that be able to continue? If the Lions struggle against this Cardinals team at all, I'm going to start to be ringing some alarm bells about the Jared Goff situation in his contract. We have seen him get paid and fall off before. I'm not saying that it's happening here, but this Cardinals defense should be a get-right game. All right, I know that they just played well against the Rams. The Rams, all their wide receivers are hurt. The Bills beat them pretty easily, okay? The Goff and the Lions offense should be more like the Bills than the Rams without Puka Nacua or Kupp, or half their offensive line at this point. But they should have been able to cut through the Buccaneers defense without Antoine Winfield, So we'll see. I mean, we talk about quarters and being able to diagnose everything from depth. I mean, Jonathan Gannon is at the forefront of that. He's had some really nice blitz looks as well that he has layered in there. I mean, he really does feel like a good defensive coordinator for the modern time. they just don't have any kind of talent, at least thus far. It's a total rebuild. Last year they were dead last in everything alongside Washington. This offseason they added just a handful of free agents, a first-round pick, Darius Robinson, who is even playing. I don't know. It's the type of game that Goff should be able to have a good performance. But at the same time, it's the type of scheme that he's had some trouble with so far, or that everybody's having trouble with, I should say. So what's going to win out here? Are they going to get right, or are they going to continue to falter? And then we'll have to have a difficult conversation next week. I think they'll be able to be fine. I mean, I'm not totally confident, though. I'm having the conversation a little bit early. I am concerned about Jared Goff, but we'll see if this one can kind of calm my fears. And then what the Cardinals are doing on offense, I mean, it kind of feels like maybe even a superior version to what the Lions are doing. It's certainly more extreme in certain ways. They have been in 13 personnel on 23 of their 122 offensive plays this season. That is a very high rate. Last week, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the lone wide receiver on the field in 13 personnel, and it totally shredded the defense. All right, the threat of the run was just too much. Guys were crashing down on it. Kyler was rolling out untouched. Not enough coverage bodies out there for a guy like Marv. Just killed it. Be interesting to see if that's a formula that continues to work against teams not named the Bills, or if the Lions can go out and replicate what Buffalo did and play nickel with Brian Branch down, keep a roof on everything, keep more DBs on the field to deal with guys like Dortch and MHJ and Wilson and McBride and stuff like that. I think that's the ideal way to play this Cardinals offense, but just not a lot of teams have the personnel to do it. I think the Lions could. So I think this will be could be a chance for more of a Lions statement game on defense than it could maybe on offense. So that's something to look for. The Kyler Murray deep ball, good thing to track. Totally gone last year and really the year before that as well. Looks like the best deep ball thrower in football this time around. What will that continue? Something to look out for. So I just think that that's one to keep an eye on here, because I think both the Lions and the Cardinals are contenders in the NFC this year. I think the Cardinals have done enough in 2 weeks to be regarded as that. I mean, killing the Rams and keeping things close against the Bills. They've got the franchise quarterback that you need. They're running the right scheme, I think, for the era. They're like... I know that last year the Lions were on the doorstep of the Super Bowl, but it's a new season, and I don't think there's any guarantee that they dominate a team like the Cardinals or cover the spread and win easily. Like the pecking order is still being sorted out here, and I think the Cardinals could finish very high in that. So this is a huge game. I'm about an hour into this. I'll break down. I know I didn't break down much of week 3. I'll get on that on TikTok and maybe pick some. Watch out for my upset picks. Watch out for my winners. And more player breakdowns. That'll do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. I have been Theo Ash. You can follow me at Theo Ash NFL on Twitter and TikTok. Follow the PFN company on all platforms at PFN365. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Oh, I had one person ask for a lock, like start giving my lock of the week so people can win in their survivor pools. I really think it's Buffalo. I said that already. I really think Buffalo is going to beat Jacksonville and send them into a real panic. Maybe Cincinnati over Washington as well. I don't think Cincinnati is that bad that they'll go 0-3 and lose to Washington. But anyway, that'll do it. Thanks so much for listening. I will see you next week.